Hi, everybody. Joe and Zack, your local Pittsburgh realtors, here today to talk to you about how do I make an offer as a buyer. And, that's a really fun, exciting part of buying a house is there's a lot of excitement when you find the right one and you're ready to get in there and try and get it under contract and be able to start the process. But unfortunately, there's also a lot of paperwork that goes along with it. And one of the main things that's really important to do is there's some kind of compulsory generic type paperwork that has to be done before you can make an offer. And ideally, Zach and I try and get that done with the buyer before we find, their dream house for them, because you don't want to have to do 2 or 3 hours worth of paperwork the night you find your perfect house. You want to just be able to get that offered as quickly as possible and hopefully beat out anybody else who might be interested. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about what those are in a very general way, about how you do that. So I would say to fully understand some of the compulsory or generic paperwork, you probably need to sit down with your agent over a period of about an hour or two and fill those things out. There are things like a contract, a buyer agency contract, other things that show that you're being represented by the company that agent works for.
A lot of red tape kind of stuff.
Red tape.
It's non-product or non-property specific. So
correct. So
it's stuff you can get out of the way early.
Absolutely. Just getting that out and done just streamlines the process quite a bit. But when you do get to the house you like, there are still a few things. You have the sales agreement, you have the seller disclosures, which could include lead-based paint form or oil, gas, and mineral rights. If it's a property that has some land associated with it, there could be an oil lease or a gas lease with it. Those kind of things. So you want to understand all of those things. If it's a condo, there might be some rules and regulations on pets or smoking or things like that could be a deal breaker for you. So you want to know before you put your offer in as much information as you can about the property. Once you get to that point and you say, okay, yes, we're ready to go forward and sign a sales agreement, you need to pick, obviously, the sale price. You need to know, is this house priced correctly by the seller? Is it overpriced, underpriced? Could we come in? We're going to need to, fight it out with 2 or 3 other buyers. Things like that are all important to know before you write the offer so you can have the best chance possible of getting it accepted. The things that are going to be typically looked at in the sales contract for you as the buyer are, what's your price? Is it a mortgage or is it a cash deal? If it's a cash deal, you need to show proof of funds, like a bank statement showing you have that amount of money. If it's a mortgage, you need to have a pre-approval from a lender in writing. Usually they'll email those out. You'd also need to go through with your agent and say, I'd like an inspection. I'd like to waive the inspections. I'd like a pest inspection. I'd like a radon inspection. The closing date, like if you have an apartment, for example, you're a first-time buyer and you're leaving your apartment on a certain date because of your lease, you want to keep that in mind with how you write your offer.
Yeah, there's a lot of little details that you don't really think about especially as a first-time buyer. You might think, I want to buy that house for $150,000. That's maybe the most important part of it, but you can't go in with just that. You have to have a lot of other things. It's not like buying a used car off of Craigslist. It's a lot of paperwork behind that too.
The other thing is you're doing a negotiation with another person who lives in the house. They also, in many cases, have to move. So you're trying to avoid or be proactive with any potential problems that might come up by being as thorough as possible with your offer. A lot of times we'll call the other agent and say, hey, we're going to make an offer. Does your seller have anything that are must-haves? Do they want to be a certain closing date? Are they looking for some other kind of conditions that would be beneficial to them? And often those things are those intangibles that if there are multiple offers, which is common in the current market we're in, some of those intangibles make a big difference to the seller.
Yeah, it's a lot of. I've had deals accepted that were not the highest price, but they had all the other intangibles, like Joe said, that were better than the other offers. My buyers were willing to do a certain closing date that the other ones weren't, even though they had a lower price. It's not just about the price.
Yeah, and inspections, which inspections, things like that can also play into that. Also, there used to be a practice of people writing what were called love letters. They're somewhat discouraged nowadays because they can get into a problem with, you know, federal government guidelines on fair practices within real estate. Although it's done very innocently, it
Yeah.
can have an effect on things. So we generally discourage those kind of things, although they were popular at one time. And so it's going to really come down to almost like when you take a job interview and they see your resume for the first time. You want to put your best foot forward with that offer and make it the most attractive you can. There's obviously a lot more that goes into an offer than that. We're happy to, and we would certainly discuss it in much more detail before we wrote it with you than 2 or 3 minutes like we just did. But
Yeah.
thanks for listening.
Thanks.